Hi you guys, welcome to another episode of Amor Conversations with me, Abiel Amor here. I'm so excited about today's guest. I have Miss Chrismiss Bright, however you address her. I have a great vibe, great energy coming in, and I cannot wait for you guys to get to know her. But before we get into the interview, make sure you are turning on the post notifications, subscribing to this channel, and keeping the conversation going by leaving your comments down in the comment box below or taking it over to Twitter using the hashtag AmorConversation. So let's go ahead and get into this amazing interview.
It's a good day, good vibes. It's a good day, good vibes. It's a good day, good vibes. Thank God I'm alive.
So we are here with Miss Chrismiss Bright.
Yes.
Please help me out.
What's up?
How should you be addressed? How do you want to be addressed?
You know, I just want to be known as the doer of dope shit. Like Chrismiss, she does dope shit, done and done.
Okay, Chrismiss.
Yeah, Chrismiss. Call me Chrismiss.
Okay, cool. All right. So share with the audience what you do. What is your space? Like, what space do you take up in the entrepreneurial world?
So I am someone who has just always been highly creative. And about 6 years ago, I quit my full-time job, and I have a 8-year-old now, but then he was 2, going on 3. Or was he 4? It was like 5, 6 years. I'm not a mathematician or whatever. But you know, 5, 6 years.
Doer of dope shit,
Yeah,
not a mathematician.
But I kind of just challenged myself. Like, okay, you keep going to these jobs. You're not fulfilled. You're not happy. Like, they were literally depressing me. So I stopped doing that. And I said, you're going to survive purely based off of your ideas. That's it.
Bold.
Right.
That's so brave. So, like, what inspired you to do that? Who did you look to that you knew that, oh, I could make a living?
I mean, I was always a really huge hip-hop head, like just growing up, you know, Hot 97, this is before 105.1 was just always on my radio station, always listening to Angie Martinez, like all these people on the radio, then watching movies and TV, so I always knew that it was possible to be yourself and get paid to do it. But I guess my number one inspiration, or I have 2 people who were just like right in my, I guess, circle who were doing what they wanted to do. One was my grandfather. So he owned his own business, a furniture company. So I always knew what it was like to have ideas or have your own business and make it happen. And then my stepfather was a musician. So he was a producer, made beats, rapped. Like, I remember when I was maybe in like 4th or 5th grade, him and his group were in like Miami opening up for Eve and the Rough Riders. Right, so I was just always knowing it was tangible. But when it came to me just being an adult and having a child, I had to make the decision because I'm like, yo, if I don't do what I have to do to be happy, how is my son going to know that he can do whatever he wants to do to be happy? So I would say that's like my number one inspiration is him. Because I want him to know, like, you can have an idea. No, you don't have to go to college. You don't have to do something that doesn't make you happy, because my belief is if you're not happy, why are you doing it? And I feel like the world is the way that it is because we have a whole bunch of people doing a whole bunch of shit that they're not happy with. And you could be corporate doing that. You could be an actor, a singer, a model. You can be a superstar right now and not be happy with what you're doing. So my number one goal was just to be happy.
I can relate to your story so much, like being and conform to a job or a career because you're trying to satisfy your parents, or you're just trying to fit the societal norm. So I too left my military full-time career and just moved to New York. That's bold. It's brave to do that. Bold. So like within that, what was your mindset? What were some things that you said to yourself to keep yourself encouraged and not beat yourself up? Because I know as a creative, you go through that from the beginning, the middle, and the end. It's always a constant battle. Always. What is your mindset to get you out of that space?
I always tell people, and like I don't have all the answers, and I guess people will look at me and say like, you're doing it, which I am doing it. But again, like you said, there's always times where you have to pick yourself back up and motivate yourself. And what I realized, my number one friend is books. You have to read books. People want to leave this, the matrix, right? I call it the matrix. You want to leave the matrix. Now you're outside the matrix. Your family, your friends, for the most part, everyone you know is still in the matrix, and you're still looking to them for advice, and you're still looking to them for encouragement, and you want them to believe and support you, but they're not living in the same space that you're living in. So you have to So you have to find mentors, you know, who often have gone through the same thing that you went through, and sometimes those mentors aren't books. How many people write books? They're writing the books. They're giving you the game. Lisa Nichols is one of my favorite people. You know, Lisa Nichols, Abundance Now. Yeah. Open it up and get your life and take notes. For me, it was going to therapy. Shout out to my therapist, Cynthia Branch.
Yes.
Cynthia. Therapy really helps me. And just like really digging, because a lot of times people want to build, right? We want to build up, but we're not building down. So we're not rooted. So every time some wind blows, if an eviction notice comes, if some shit happens that will really knock you off your rocker, if you're not grounded, now you have to start again.
You don't have your reasons why.
Exactly. And I just now figured that out. You know, I read it in a book and then somebody else said it, and then I was watching an interview and that person said it, and I applied it to myself, and it's just now 5-6 years into this that I'm realizing, like, wait, this is why I keep losing momentum, because those things that happen to us when we're children, you know, whether you had a traumatic experience, whether daddy wasn't there how you wanted him to be, your mom left, like whatever those things are that are at the core of you, it becomes less about the person who it happened with, and it becomes more about what it meant to you. So, okay, now you might have a fear of rejection. And that translates from what happened to you when you were a kid. So now, so now you're not taking chances, and you're not keeping up with your word because this one thing happened. But if you don't dig, forget all the creative stuff. Forget the magazines, the photo shoots, all of those things. If you don't dig, all of those things aren't going to mean anything, because even when you get them, you're still reliving the past every single day.
Yeah, that's so amazing. So you're a great representation for your son.
Thank you.
He's seeing you do what you want to do that's making you happy. And you had great parental figures in your life because you saw that representation.
Right.
So I'm assuming your son is one of the reasons why in your foundation. So what are your other reasons why? Like, give me 4 more of your 5 reasons why that keeps you going.
Myself. You know, just the commitment to myself to not question my gifts, because sometimes when you're gifted, you feel different. And sometimes feeling different, you could feel left out. You could feel like, does this make sense? Especially when you're first beginning, like, am I good enough? So just proving to myself and knowing, like, okay, no matter what, you came in this world by yourself. You're going to leave by yourself. You have to make sure that you're happy with yourself.
On that one point.
Yes.
You are confident.
Thank you.
I feel it.
Thanks.
So, when you know you exude what you want to exude, and you walk into a room with other people that might be creatives, that might be intimidated by you, how do you treat that situation?
See, that's a very good question, because for a long time I was unaware of your
aura. It's
pizzazz. I was because I was young. And I remember one time I went to the mall with my mom, and maybe I was a sophomore in college or a freshman in college. And we were like walking through the mall, and people kept looking at me. And this is when Uggs first came out.
Okay.
So I had my little shorts. It was winter. I had my shorts with my tall Uggs and just walking around, whatever, being an 18-year-old. And people kept just looking at me, but they weren't looking me up and down. They were looking me straight in my face.
Yeah.
And after like the 10th person, I looked at my mom. I'm like, yo, people keep looking at me. And she's like, nobody's even looking at you. You know, it's not about you, whatever. Like we had a little back and forth. I was like, okay. So then she started noticing. She's like, what the fuck are these people looking at? And then fast forward, I started to realize it's my aura. It's my energy. So when I come into a room, now that I'm aware of it, I literally can see how it moves people. And it's a very powerful feeling. And unfortunately, sometimes you can see people change, but not for the good. There's people who you come in a room and they start to try to overcompensate, or they act like they don't see you. And like sometimes I'm just like, hi, like just trying to say hi because I'm a nice person and I genuinely love people, or I might have seen them before on television. And this goes from a range of someone maybe who I've never seen before and like a legend, like somebody who I've seen many times. Sometimes I'll come in a room and I'll just see like, sometimes with competition, and it's weird, and it's men and women, but I started to realize like I can't take that personal.
Yeah. Because and you can't stifle yourself. Because sometimes you realize that your presence affects someone else in a negative way, and then you feel like, oh, well, maybe I should dial myself back.
Yeah, and you take it personally, but then when you realize, like, you know, your intentions are in check, you know, I'm into meditating, yoga, so I've been really getting centered, so that when I leave my house, I know what my energy is.
Yeah.
So when I go out and my energy changes, I'm not confused as to who, what, where, or why, because I'm very, you know, aware of my surroundings. And sometimes it's even checking myself. Like, you know, I'll go out one night and then I'll go home and play back the night. Like, well, was I being extra? Or sometimes I can be very brash and abrasive because that's just, I'm just being myself. Especially when you're not working in that matrix, you can do and say and wear whatever you want to, and I'll come into a room with people who are not used to operating that way, and they're just looking at me like,
why is she doing so much?
Right.
Like, what am I supposed to do? Why can't I be myself? Especially if you are saying you are a creative director.
Right.
So like.
Yeah, but people don't know your title when they see you.
That's so true.
They don't know your title when they see you.
That's true.
Yeah.
So what was your other three? You said yourself, your son.
My mom. I think everyone, for the most part, has that dream of like, I don't want my mom to have to work. Or I always say when she does work, she's going to work for me. Because my mom is like one of the smartest people that I know. And she's one of those people, like if you tell her, hey mom, like I need a round trip ticket to Jamaica by tomorrow morning, she'll find some way for the airline to owe you money. Like what? Like so what kind of?
Hit you up to hit your mom up.
She's like the family like travel agent. Whatever you need, she got you. So my mom will be my first employed. Mom, if you're listening, I want to pay you good money, but you're good because she's like 10 employees in one. Yeah. So yes, she'll be mine. So my mom is number 3.
Yeah, you're at 3.
Women, black women. Black women, mothers. Because just as a woman, as a black woman, as a mother, as a domestic violence survivor, there were so many things that were telling me, you can't. How dare you? You're not equipped to do this. You're not beautiful enough to do this. And I'm biracial. I'm black and Puerto Rican. So that's like another part of like when I was younger, never feeling like I really belonged. And that was really hurtful, but now it helps me. Yeah. Because I'm used to it. I'm used to not, like if I walk in a room, I'm used to not fitting in. I'm not looking for my people because I'm just...
You are your people.
I am my people. I'm with myself.
And the people for you comes to you, and that's just what you exude.
Tribe vibe is what I call it. Yes. So yeah, for people who have been through shit, who have been through life or death situations, who have been through trauma, who I had a child at 21 years old. For the longest time, I was the only one of my friends who had a child, and people look at me now like, wow, you're doing what you're doing with a child.
Yeah.
And at first,
it's intimidating.
It is, but at first I used to feel irresponsible because I used to hear those messages like.
But weren't you in a relationship at the time, or
when
you were co-parenting? I know you do co-parenting. So when you found out you were pregnant, you were with the father. So you were afraid at the time. I feel like that's comforting knowing that.
I mean, the relationship was a tumultuous one. So even in that relationship, once my son came, I always knew that there was going to be a point in time where I was going to be doing it on my own. But at that time, I was still working a full-time job. I wasn't thinking about being a creative. It wasn't until I left and I was on my own that I took that leap. But then you hear messaging like, oh, well, you don't have a job. You don't have insurance. You don't have life insurance. You have a child. That's irresponsible. I gave up my car. It's like, oh, you gave up your car and he needs to have a car. And I'm just like, wait. There's buses and there's trains and there's Uber and there's a bunch of people around who have children and are good parents who don't have all of these things. So I started to need less and I started to require less. And at first making sacrifices felt like work, but then I started to get excited about the sacrifices because it's the truth. People won't be where you are because they're not willing to do what you do. They're not willing to give up what you give up. So when people are offended, and there's a bunch of people who will be offended by the things that I'm sacrificing, they're just projecting it on me because they're not willing to do it.
Their insecurities, it's their fear, and they want you to be fearful just as much as them.
And it's not, we say that, and I agree with you, but I don't think it's always a conscious thing. Because when you make it a conscious thing, then it seems like people are malicious. It could be your grandmother who's saying something. I think it's subconscious because they were trained up a certain way. They were taught to look at the world a certain way. So when I come in the room and I disrupt everybody's shit, they don't know what to do with it. So they only can say their fear. And they speak their fears. And it's just like, all of the greats say, don't let other people put their fear on you. And it's easier said than done. And I'm still working on it. Like I still have my days where it's like, no one supports me. But then I wake up the next day and I'm still motivated. So I just kind of leave it alone.
It's hard being a creative and then always feeling the pressure because you are your own boss. It's not no assignment that someone else is giving you to move forward. You always have to be creative. So within the creative director realm, like what's the first thing that you created that brought you some type of compensation? And it doesn't have to be monetary. It could have related to another job.
Let me think about that.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I started to model. And I started realizing, like, in all of my shoots, I would be modeling, and then I'd be like, hey, you know what? Let's move this here. Let's do that. Like, I literally started to direct all of my shoots, and it's been, like, umpteen shoots that I have done that in. So I can't really name a specific thing, but I just know that one day I came home, and I was just like, why don't I just start putting my own stuff together, whether it's events, like my Art of Convo event, whether it's ideas. There's so many ideas that I had from my friends, like my girl, Sarah Vega. Hey, Sarah. I was mentoring her, and I was just like, yo, you're dope. You should have a podcast. And she's Dominican. I'm like, you should name it Dike. And now for the last year and a half, she has a very successful podcast. So I think, you know, my creative direction isn't only just photo shoots. It's having ideas and not being selfish with them. So if I have an idea and it will be dope for me, I'll do it. If I have an idea, I can call you up like, Abigail, you know what, you're really good at this. I think this will be good for you, and I'll give it to you. And for me, you know, people always talk about compensation, right? Like you just said, my compensation is universal coin. Like the universe.
She over here in Bitcoin.
Let me tell you something. Y'all talking about Bitcoin and how much money. Yes, you have to know your worth, but also don't be stingy with your gifts, because when you're not stingy with your gifts and you share them with people, and people are enriched and better people just by knowing you, yo, the universe will look you out every single time. Those people will hit you back and they'll remember you.
Yes, because you helped them when they didn't even know sometimes, or they were just looking for some type of guidance.
And because you didn't do it to get something back. I don't do it to get something back. I do it because that's my gift. Like, you know, I've had people steal my ideas, and I used to trip, but I don't even trip anymore, because I can wake up on any given day and have like a good 30 ideas.
Yes. You see how it flows to you, because you speak this language of being a creator. And sometimes people come up to you and like, oh, I want to start this, or I want to do this. And they're like, how do I do it? Well, sis, if it's for you, you will just go ahead and you will start it. Right. You won't have to ask someone else for your ideas. You have to, if you're going to be a blogger, right? You shouldn't be asking, what should my content be? You should be just doing it and then fine tuning how to deliver it to your audience.
People don't want to fail.
That's the fear.
So they see someone like you and they're like, oh, she's successful. So if I do exactly what she did, then I'll get the success that she got wrong.
You say I'm successful. I don't feel like I'm at my success point.
That doesn't mean you're not successful.
What is success for you?
Success for me is feeling happy with myself. Outside of walking out of my bedroom door in the morning, waking up first and foremost, waking up, feeling happy, feeling inspired, feeling motivated for the day, because I've had days, weeks, months where I didn't feel like getting out of bed. So if I can get out of bed and be excited about the day and what I can produce that day, that's success to me. Of course, making goals, which I'm working on too, making goals and achieving them, because for a long time, I guess I was afraid to make goals, or I didn't understand like how important they were. And I'm also a free spirit, which is cool, but being a free spirit can get you caught up because you're just like
flailing everywhere.
That's me. That was me, flailing everywhere, and then good things would happen, and I'd be like, look, it works. But then I started to realize, what if I actually premeditated certain things, like, okay, because I'm a very competitive person, so by this day, month, I want to have this amount of money, or by this day, this month, I want to be in the south of France, or whatever. If I set those goals for myself, they will happen, because I'm a winner, and that's what winners do. They win. They win.
Yo,
I
win. You lose. No. Yo, but okay, so back to your fourth point. You said women. How do you feel about the hashtag Me Too situation and speaking out your truth, like the proximity of, like the timing that women are speaking out? Because you mentioned that you are a domestic violence survivor, and I feel like I knew this about you, not even from conversation, from captions. You were very transparent and open about it. Do you feel like women should be criticized because of their timing of them coming out?
No, I mean, I feel like this. People are shook. Men are shook.
They don't want to talk about it either.
The industry is shook. So why would people who are trying to keep this the way that things are going, this structure, why would they support women who are coming out? You have to think about this. We always want, why are we not supported? Why are people will try to drag you down when they're afraid of you, right? So I feel like it's your responsibility as a woman, if you went through something, to speak up. And if you're not courageous enough, it's okay. But then if you see a woman who is courageous enough, don't tear her down. Or if that person inspires you, understand that to change the world and to change the dynamic of the way that things are working, it's going to be scary. So for me, talking about my domestic violence situation, it wasn't really a relationship, I should say. I wouldn't say it was scary because I had already went through the worst with that person. The only scary part was, different family members knowing now, that I might not have told myself, and they'll read it on Instagram. And that kind of dirty secret being exposed. But I had to not care about, because guess what? No one was helping me. When I was in it, no one was there helping me. So why would I be afraid about their opinions now? So, and I understand like how many women and people, men too, who I've helped. Maybe there was a man in a relationship, and he was doing that to his girlfriend, and he probably could have read my caption and said, you know what I'm doing is messed up, or hey, let me go to therapy. So I understand that it can be scary because there's a lot of shame attached, especially with sexual abuse, domestic violence as well, because it's like, oh, what did I do to make this person do this to me? But with sexual trauma, that's a whole different ballgame. There's already shame attached. And I think it's interesting. I posted something yesterday on my Instagram. Did you see it?
Yes.
Did you see it?
It was a lot of comments about this vibration and energy and these fake woke men. Sometimes maybe women might do that too.
All the time, for sure.
But like, it was ridiculous how he was making her feel like she was the wrong person because she did not feel comfortable enough to be alone, comfortable to be alone with this guy who she does not know. Right.
So long story short, guys, it was this post that I saw in the Shade Room. And it was a screenshot of this girl who had tweeted this conversation she had with this guy that she met at the gym. And she was basically saying like, hey, I want to meet you in a public place. And he got offended, like, I have a whole apartment. And he basically tried to manipulate, gaslight, like say all of these things to make her feel bad about not wanting to come to his apartment. So I posted it, and I specifically asked for the men to respond, because a lot of times as a woman, you'll post something, and this is why I have an issue with just women's empowerment, and that's a whole nother conversation. Because if we continue to empower women and have these open conversations with women, and we're not bringing our men along, how can we possibly think?
It's going to be so biased. It's going to be one way of thinking.
But how can we enlighten men? Because now then it's all these women saying like, hey, I can't find no man who's good enough, because we're not working to enlighten them as well. But whatever. I always like to make sure that men are involved in the conversation. So my caption and then my comments just got out of control. I think there's like 300 and something comments.
Yeah, it's a lot. I didn't even go through it. But
I stopped going through it.
I went through the comments on the Shade Room post. I was just like, guys really think this way, and women are just like, what is going on?
But there's some women who are defending him as well. So here's my point to that, right? What do you hear all the time? Let's just bring up Bill Cosby for shits and giggles, right? People are like, well, why would you go to his hotel room? You knew what was up, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. If that woman would have went to that man's apartment on her first date, and if she would have gotten raped, and then she would have came out that she got raped, well, why would you go to his house anyway? So why are we acting like we don't perpetuate rape culture? When we do. If a woman tries to protect herself, she's being extra, she's doing too much. If a woman trusts you, like you say she should trust you, then she gets raped. If she gets raped, and then she speaks out about it, then maybe, you might not believe her. Because the one thing that I hate is like, oh, why did they wait so long? Do you understand how scary it is? Because these people are powerful. The people, Harry Weinstein, these people who women are brave enough to come out against.
They have James Franco.
Oh my God.
Different people that are coming out.
Millions of dollars where they can threaten you. Oh, I'm going to hurt your family. I'm going to ruin your career. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Trust me, it's not as easy as just like, hey, this happened to me. I've been in different situations. I went on a date with a guy. I went on a couple of dates with him. And then on the 4th or 5th date, he had money. He's just like, oh, let's go to this hotel, do you want to stay in the city with me? I'm like, sure, whatever. And then he really tried it. And I had to say no, not once, not twice, not 10, not 20, like that's 25 times I had to say no, to the point where I didn't even sleep that night. I like had my eyes wide open, and then I bounced. And then when he tried to talk to me again and I reached back out to him, I was just like, hey, I didn't feel comfortable last night. And then again, the gaslighting, the manipulation. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
You're doing too much. You're taking it the wrong
way.
They
blame women. And he's probably going to see this at some point. And like, if you're wondering if I'm talking about you, I am.
Yes, she is. She's talking about
But nothing happened as far as he didn't penetrate. Nothing. It wasn't rape. It wasn't anything like that. It was just me being in an uncomfortable situation. Now, fast forward, if someone else asked me on a date, and now it's our 6th, 7th, 8th date, and they ask me to go to a hotel room, what am I going to say? No. And then that person's going to be like, oh, you don't trust me, and get offended. But what you do is when you put women in uncomfortable situations, you make that person that much more traumatized in the next situation. And it's something that
just wall builds stronger.
Builds.
Yeah.
Can I read something?
Yeah.
Really quickly?
Yes. Bring it out. Bring the scripture.
This was my caption of the day, right? And I loved it
you
because
guys should follow her. Chrismiss, I'll have her at and everything. And then we're going to talk about the art of combo too. Because you see right now, she's already giving great conversation.
Yeah, that's what I
had to have her up here.
That's what I do is I talk.
Yes.
Okay, so this guy responded, and I loved it so much because it's a man who's saying this. He said, men are trash. which I don't believe, not all men, but he put myself included. We have to really unpack our shit, hold each other accountable, and really understand that our fuckery is detrimental to girls, women, boys, and other men. I totally co-sign the woman's responses because her safety and well-being are what's most important. Homeboy, much like most men, are so used to entitlement that the slightest form of hesitance or questioning can infuriate them. It's very toxic. Fellas, let's hold each other accountable, especially, and I don't know what he said, y'all closest dudes. And so that's my thing.
How many guys came after him?
Nobody. I didn't check up. But even guys that posted said, oh, he's lame. But no one talked about holding one another accountable. I don't understand how there's men out here not taking care of their kids, but they're in Vegas with their friends. How do you have friends? How there's men out here beating their women, but they're at the family barbecue and the family knows, no, hey, you're going to continue to do this? We will not accept you. You're not going to go get help. We will not be a part. But if you're someone who's on the sideline and you know what's happening and you're not checking your person, you're not checking your son, you're not checking your best friend and he's the best man at your wedding and you know the BS that he does, no, hey, you can't come to my cookout unless you bring your children. That's it. Accountability. It's a community issue.
And we're self-policing. We don't have to worry about everyone else coming in and making a bigger deal of the situation. You have to look out for your brother.
You do.
You have to look out for your sister.
Yes.
So let's get back into the creative direction now, because I want people to learn how to get into it. You just started. What would you suggest for someone that is aspiring to be where you are?
Well, number one, I'm not one of those people who I don't have regrets, period. I just don't. I don't think about what I could have done differently, because when I think about something I could do differently, I just do that differently now. So you have to fail your way through. You have to be brave enough to make mistakes because you're not going to know everything. I think that is very powerful. Just as a creative person, I attract other creative people. And my one friend always laughs at me because he's like, yo, you call everybody a genius. Like, stop calling me that. I don't even feel happy anymore because you call me that. You call everyone that. But I understand now that's my gift, is seeing the genius in everyone. So what ends up happening is now I have friends who are like, okay, you're an editor, you're a director, you do this, you do this. Yo, let's work on this project together. And it won't always have to
be...
Build your teams with the people who are around you. And it doesn't always have to be for release. You don't always have to throw it on Instagram or put it on YouTube. Just to do it. Just for the sake of seeing, how's the synergy? How are we working together? Don't be afraid to do that. Creatively direct your life, right? Because if you're going onto a set and you're making all these boss moves and saying, I think that this should look like this, but you're not doing that in your own life, there's not a balance there. I'm all about preaching how I live and living how I preach. So I'm not necessarily where I want to be yet as far as my creative director lane. And I guess, for the sake of this interview, it's an easy title to give me, but I'm just really a creative entrepreneur. And creative direction is one of the things that I do. But I just wake up, like I said before, I do dope shit. I'm like, yo, what would be dope? And I do it whether it's going to make me money, whether it's going to, 1 million people are going to see it, whether it's just something creatively I do with my child. Like, I'm a creative person. I need somewhere to put that energy, because when I'm not putting that energy out, I'm not happy. So my advice to people would just be, make your ideas happen at whatever cost. Execute them, because what ends up happening when you don't, that energy is getting stored and you're suppressing it. And now you're not happy with yourself, or you feel ashamed, or you feel like you're not good enough because you never really got to make the mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Not every single thing you do is going to be hot. Some shit you're going to do is going to be hot and no one will think that it's hot, but who are you doing it for?
Yeah.
There's so many times, you'll see, I think I saw Pharrell in an outfit, and there was people in the comments, talking about him, but he's so in 2099, 3000 and whatever year. Do it for you. You think it's dope. I think that's what makes a creative director dope, is because they see things that other people don't see. When you're doing things that have already been done, because you know that, oh my God, this thing is successful, so let me see how I can do the same exact thing with my little twist on it, because I know the formula. That's kind of boring. You're not really adding anything. So I think get your ideas together. You know what I'm saying?
Execute.
Be inspired. Execute. Be motivated. Do what you have to do in your personal life, so that when you get onto that set, you can have that voice.
How do you feel about faking it until you make it? Because you were saying, you can't go onto the set and not really be exuding that in your real life. But what if your real life at that moment is not where you want it to be, but you still want to carry yourself in that manner?
That's a good question.
How do you go about that?
So let me just rewind a little bit. It's not about, your life doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just talking about the energy, the way that you approach things. My life right now, as I sit here, I wrote a list in my journal of the shit that I must change. But it's being aware. It's a level of consciousness that I have that's like, okay, I am the creator of my own life. You know, I believe in God. I believe God is in me. So if God is in me, we're working at this thing every single day together. So it's just taking that kind of that reign on your life to say, okay, this is what I want. This is how I'm going to make it happen. And it's the same thing when you're on set or when you're executing an idea. This is what I want. This is how I'm going to make it happen. And those things parallel each other. Yeah. So that's that. What was the other question?
Art of Convo.
Okay.
We have to talk about that.
Yes.
You started the Art of Convo. You did 4 to 5 actual live events.
No, I actually had 17 live events.
17, girl. Where have I been, sis? All right.
Well, it's you don't know about it or you haven't seen it a lot because it's not one of those things that I promote a lot. Art of Convo, for me, my idea behind it was just to create an event that's not oversaturated. It's not I always tell people it's not a photo op. No, there will be no Snapchat filters. No, there will be no step and repeat. It's just not that kind of thing. It's an intimate conversation. There's 40 people there, but I always tell people, even at the events, if you want to record something because you think that what someone said is dope, do it. Yeah. Ask their permission. But most people, for the whole event, they're not even on their phone because there's so much in the conversation. I love it.
I love it. That's why I had to have her up here. Because a lot of people will try to pitch you against your sister, your competition. I don't even see it as competition because they try to pit you against one another. Right. And you do conversation and I'm doing conversation as well. And I feel like it's so dope to really facilitate true conversation to knock down stereotypes or just enlighten someone what they did not really know about, you know? So what made you start? Like, I know you were saying about panels. You were disgusted with panels. I personally don't like panels either, but just tell me why you're not doing that format for Art of Convo.
So I was on many panels and I love to talk, as you can see. Like, I can host myself. You could just duplicate me right there and I could just talk all day. I love to talk and I love to talk to people. And some of the best lessons that I've learned in life just came from meeting a stranger at a bus stop. Like, oh, I like your hair. And then, you know, the conversation goes through all of these different things before you even get to your next stop. And now you've learned something about yourself, about somebody else, about the world. And what I realized when I'm sitting on panel discussions, inherently in the setup of a panel, the people who are usually on the panel are people who are representing a brand. They have an image. They're representing a company, like such and such from Sony Music. Every question that you ask such and such from Sony Music, he has to answer as such and such from Sony Music. But that person is a whole person. That's just not all that they are. So that's the one thing I didn't like. Number 2, people usually who are facilitating these panels are picking people on their panels who are popular. Hey, you have 1 million Instagram followers. Let me have you on my panel because now when you post it, 1 million people are going to see it and everyone's going to know. It's a marketing thing as well. Number 3, the people who are asking the questions in the audience, because they have to be there and stand up and ask the questions, they might not always be brave enough to. So there's a lot of people who have questions, they don't even stand up and ask them. And then when they do stand up, they're like, hey, let me ask a question that can be palatable, that won't be offensive, that won't make that person dig too deep because I don't want to get too personal. So I was sitting on a panel one day, and it was a panel about Black girl magic, I think. So, you know, everyone's giving the Black girl magic answers that we see every single day on memes and stuff, which is cool. But a question came up about Black men in regards to Black women. And there was a couple of Black men, like, scattered in the room, but they were, like, on the outskirts. So when I got the microphone, I'm like, men, what do you think? And they were kind of looking at me. I'm like, come in, bring it in. So I changed the panel right then and there into a full-blown conversation. And at the end of that panel discussion, I made an announcement like, hey, I'm going to start having conversation parties. I don't really know how I'm going to do it, but I think that they will be dope. So fast forward, I ended up having a meetup. And I was telling, I think like 40, 50 people came to the meetup, which I was like really shocked. Yeah, that's dope. So I'm like talking to everyone. I'm like, yo, I have this idea for this conversation party. And I had the meetup in an art gallery. So this girl, after I said how I wanted it to be, she's like, yo, that's like the art of conversation. And I'm like, word. So she named it. And I was just like, yo, exactly. So I kind of ran with that. And I don't really want to give up 100% the setup of what I do, but just understand that it's 40 people in a room. I don't promote anyone, so if you come, and you'll see who is there when you get there. So like if someone like Beyonce wanted to come, she can come, because there is no press, there is no media, there is no one who's coming there just to align with you. You're allowed to be in that space as a person, as a human being, because the more popular I became, the more uncomfortable I started to become with how people were approaching me. Like it was no longer like meeting a stranger at the bus stop. It's like, now you already know me before I know you. You've been following me on Instagram. I'm very transparent. You know about my mom, my dad, my son. You already know what you want to get to, but there's so many other things that you may not know, or I might not be in the mood to talk. So I was like, how can I create a space where people are feeling like they're safe? People are feeling like they can ask questions. I have this thing where people can ask questions anonymously. Yeah. So we read out questions and we discuss them anonymously. I have certain rules in place. There's not a lot of rules, but just to keep people together and not yelling and stuff over each other, even though it happens. And literally at the end of every one, someone comes up to me and tells me like, yo, this changed my life, because they heard something from someone, or they were able to connect with someone who had an experience that they had, that they never even knew that other people were going through the same thing. So I'm very inspired and encouraged to continue them. And I'm happy that you're doing this, because I feel like there's not a lot of influencers who want to talk about real shit.
And you know, that's what I admire about you. Transparency and talking about real shit.
Thanks.
Because I hosted a panel that you were on, but it was a story that you told that was so transparent that brought me to tears. And people that are so transparent with their truth and is like they don't hold back, I really admire that, because that's something I struggle with sharing real shit that goes on. And this is why I've started a more conversation, because I want to become more comfortable with being vulnerable within my mistakes, my flaws, my success. Even success, I want to suppress that too, because I'm just like, no, I'm not where I want to be. It's just always me beating myself up. So you shared a story about, I don't know if you mind me sharing.
No, share it. The whole world knows.
You were sharing about how you just needed to make a certain amount of money to keep things afloat. And you brought me to tears. Like, have you always been this transparent? Like, or did you just get to a certain point where you were like, hey, why not? And then what brought you to that point?
I think that I was always raised around a bunch of straight shooters, like people telling it how it is. For the most part, I don't necessarily know they talked a lot about their feelings, but it was just their opinions. Like, okay, this is what it is. This is how I feel. You don't like it, fight me. Yeah. Like, that was just like the way that I was brought up. So just going, first of all, having a 10-pound baby alone just made me feel like, all right, I don't really care what anybody has to say, because I had a 10-pound baby, so I'm gonna stay and do what I want to do. And then literally going through life or death experiences, I guess all of that culminated, just made me someone who, telling my truth, like when I type these captions on Instagram or when I'm talking about certain things on YouTube, just me saying it out loud to myself or saying it to a camera is just me and the camera and the world, you know, watching. Saying it is therapy, because now I'm able to, once you say it, it's real. Writing it down, it's real. And then again, having people message me like, oh my God, I didn't abort my child because of your story. I see you and your son, and now my child is 3 years old. Here's a picture. Or like, hey, I pursued my dream because of you and I was able to buy a house. Or like whatever these like success stories that people give me really inspires me to be transparent. Because what doesn't inspire me is when people aren't transparent. So instead of complaining about seeing like the same bubblegum stuff all the time on Instagram or on YouTube or on television, you have to be the change that you want to see. So it's scary sometimes. It's very scary. And
blame, like,
not even from people that I don't know. I don't really care about strangers because you're strangers. And 9 times out of 10, a stranger is not going to say anything to your face. But it's about talking about like family issues, or the way, you know, if I was like depressed at one point and talking about that, and then your phone got a ring and it's your mom asking you questions, or your aunt who you may have called out who said some fucked up shit to you when you were a kid and you talked about it in the caption. Now they feel some type of some type of way, but when you talk about your truth, no one can ever hold it against you.
Listen,
when you talk the truth, no one can say anything to you because it's your truth, and that's it. I don't have this pressure of like holding up a facade. Like, even if you watch my Instagram stories in the morning, I'm literally 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning on Instagram, no makeup, no nothing, leaving the gym, acne, looking crazy, but I feel completely confident and comfortable to do that because I know who I am and I know what I bring to the table. I know what I bring to the world. And I think when you asked me before what success is, that's success to me.
Being you.
being able to feel 100% okay with being that, even being vulnerable and saying I have insecurities too. Mm-hmm. People confuse being confident with not having with not having insecurities. Yeah. You can just be confident and know your insecurities, mm-hmm. and that's just what it is.
And you're working on that. And being aware, being present. It's amazing. And I think that's a vital part of your branding. I feel like I know you, like it's some type of connection. Right. Even before we even met in person, we met via Instagram. On Instagram. And I think you commented because you know what? You gave me so much confidence in your comment, mm-hmm. because I cut my hair and I was in the military at the time, and I would just receive so much shit about my hair, mm-hmm. because it was predominantly white males. They didn't know anything about black hair or natural hair, let alone. And then I posted something. You were like, "Oh my gosh, I cut my hair, mm-hmm. because of you," or something. You said something to that effect, and I was just like, "Wow." Yeah. You know, and at the time, I really wasn't taking influencing that seriously. But I was like, you know, I'm really impacting other people, and they don't even have to be the same skin complexion. They don't even have to be in the same state as me. Nope. Like you make a difference. And I followed you from then on, and then it was just always constant good vibes. I associate you with a sunflower. Thank you. I associate you with light. And I associate you with like realness. I just know, even if I feel like you might be off one day, mm-hmm. you don't give a shit. You'll say like, "Listen, this is how I'm feeling right now," or you'll tell me, "Yeah, I can feel your vibe. It's a little off right now because I saw you one time. You're like, nah, I don't feel it right now." But I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you too. You know, like I said before, we're in this world where people are, and I think I said this off air. They'll see that you're successful and they want to do the same exact thing that you're doing, mm-hmm. because they want to be successful. And I think that you stand out. You know, you might be into hair and makeup, and usually I don't follow people, mm-hmm. who just do that because
I need substance.
I need substance, and you're someone who balances that, you know, very well. Yeah, for sure. You balance it well, and then you're taking it up. You can continue to take it up another notch and another notch, and that's who I like to follow. People always want to complain about what they see, but you have to follow what you want to see. Yeah. So I just do more of that, following who I want to be like, who I want to be cool with, even if it's just being cool with them on Instagram. Yeah. Like Instagram relationships are real. I got my mentor off of Instagram. Really? Yeah, well actually in person. I met her in person, but then we followed each other on Instagram. And through Instagram, because she's transparent and I'm transparent, we got to know each other via Instagram, and now it's like a real relationship that matriculated from there. So yeah, man.
Good vibes.
Thank you.
I want to after this.
Shout out to conversations.
Yes, conversation, art of convo, Amor conversations, and I'm gonna have all of your links down in the description box. You have to follow her.
Thank you.
Daily inspiration, daily slay. She'll slay you. She'll have your shoot popping or whatever. The Island Boy, Sea Girl.
Yes.
Listen, I'll put those pictures and everything. Like she is a part of that. She does dope shit.
Thank you.
So make sure you're following Chrismiss Bright. That's your Chrismiss.
It's Chrismiss, yeah. Bright is my last name. People don't believe me, but that's my real last name.
Listen, but I associate you with light. It's just meant to be.
Chrismiss, CHRISMISS.
Follow her. Click the links. And until next time, thank you all so much for watching Amor Conversation.
Bye.
It's a